Welcome to Business Minds, your resource for connecting with business owners, aspiring entrepreneurs, and forward thinkers to learn together, to collaborate about a variety of business topics, and to uncover solutions that maybe you hadn't thought of before. I'm Cindy Bird. I'm your host, and I'm also a business owner myself, an educator, and a thinking partner. And I have a passion for helping people and businesses thrive. It's my pleasure to be with you today, and I'm so thankful that you're choosing to join today's program. I'm so excited to be continuing my theme for the month of June, which is risky business. And yes, those of you waiting for Tom Cruise, you're not going to see that, but you're going to have some great experiences listening to my guests and I discuss the risks that they've experienced in business. And as I mentioned on a show a couple of weeks ago, just having a business is risky and starting one in the first place, but risk can also help you grow and challenge you, and they can even differentiate your business. And that's something that I think my guest today has done very, very well. I'm so excited and extremely pleased to welcome my special guest, Katie Arnholt Kim, I beg your pardon. And I look at her as really a very successful and inspiring businesswoman and a native Peorian, right? So
Absolutely.
she is director and small business specialist with the Kim Group, and really excited to have her share her perspectives about risky business. But before we get into that, I would love to have you share with the viewers a little more about how you got started in business and what the Kim Group is all about.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to. So, my family started in construction and development back in 1948. And so,
Wow.
in our blood, so my grandfather was the brainchild behind Pioneer Industrial Park and Joanne Manor, Joanne Hills, and my mom and dad took over the construction company there. So I always say I grew up in it, and I was a victim of child labor law. So I would go to volleyball practice or soccer practice, and then I'd go afterwards and be shingling a roof or laying a foundation. And so
You have really been immersed in
yeah.
it from the ground up. No pun
Absolutely, from the
intended.
ground up, from the ground up. I know how to lay foundations. I know how to roughen a window. And it was really great because it taught me grit, and it taught me really how to work together as a team in
Love
that sense.
word, grit.
Oh, me too, because that's what we're missing a lot of times, I think, today. And so, I grew up and went to college. And actually, I went to college. I entered pre-med. I came out computer science. And people would look at that like, hey. And I went to work for a company called Accenture in Chicago. So
Know of that company.
yeah,
Yes.
they're a big consulting company. And I worked in their research and innovation department. So I was a complete nerd because I loved my programming and I loved getting in and making things work. And what we would do is we got to play with technology 5 to 7 years to market. So like medicine cabinets that when you take out a pill would, reorder your prescription. We were working on that back in like 2000, 2001. And
So
we
where are those? That's pretty cool.
they're still getting produced, right? And so we'd go and companies would come to us and look for strategic solutions with new technology. And it really helped me look at different businesses and how to create opportunities in them. And it was an amazing experience. I got to work in China, I got to work in Hong Kong and Amsterdam, London, all over the US. And it was really an amazing opportunity. And then I met my husband, and so I continued to do consulting work, but I'd fly out Monday morning and fly back Friday night. And he always made fun of me because I only had like a 6-pack of beer and ketchup in my fridge, but I was never home. So then I went to work for a small startup company, and I loved it because with Accenture comes a lot of processes and ways to define and rigorous structure. Startup, it's a little bit more fluid, and I love the opportunity. I worked with there for a company for a couple of years, and then my mother gave me the opportunity and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about taking over the family business?" And we had not at that time because we were in technology, my husband and I, and so we had started investing in real estate in Chicago, and so we basically launched the Kim Group in terms of the real estate side up in Chicago back in like '04, '05
Wow,
timeframe.
okay.
And then when we came back, we did decide to obviously come back and start to work for the family company. We transitioned the Kim Group to down here and continued into real estate, and then added property management
Okay.
services. And so it was a great opportunity to learn different sides of the family business. So I always kind of laugh. I've almost been in every corporate structure, right? The corporate, the startup, the
You
family
have.
business.
I mean, what a diverse opportunity of experience you
Yeah.
have had, both through your education and your
Mhm.
work experience, your travel, all of that
Yeah.
combined into one. But you came back to Peoria
I
because this
did.
is this is home,
This is
right?
home, and I loved it. Everybody said, "How can you leave Chicago and then come back here?" Well, the priorities changed a little bit. I wanted to start a family, and we really wanted to make an impact. I mean, that my husband and I always talk about that a lot. Is we wanted to make an impact, and a lot of times in bigger cities, you can't make that impact.
So would you say that that decision to move back to Peoria and bring the Kim group here was maybe one of the first big risks that you
Oh
chose to
yeah.
take?
Probably the first risk was leaving Accenture because I was
Okay,
on a,
yes.
a very good path. I had a really really bright future at Accenture, and it's one of those after you make the decision, it's what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? You question it, and
Start second guessing yourself.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and then obviously with the move, I think it kind of happened so fast that I didn't think about it.
Okay, I was just going to ask you what gets you past that second guessing yourself phase? I think that's where a lot of people get stuck and
Oh,
backpedal,
absolutely.
right?
More so, it's now or never.
Okay.
And one of the things I did, because the other thing I had done, because a victim of child labor law, I'd worked always like three jobs. So
Sure.
I would go play soccer, go waitress, and then I'd have to work at the family company. So having a 60 to 80 hour job a week was just not enough. So I put myself through masters when I was working. So um, I assessed myself first, and I basically said, what am I passionate about? And what do I read a beautiful book one time, and it said one of the activities was write a like Time magazine article about yourself. If you're on the front cover of Time, what do you want it to say about you? And it made me really take some time to reflect. And it's not about how much money you have in your bank account. It's not about, to me it wasn't at least.
Right.
It's about the impact that you're leaving on people's lives, and how do you make the world a better space.
Absolutely. You are speaking
Yeah.
my language for sure. I don't think we took the same class, but
No.
there was a class that I took it was a career management class of
Yeah.
all things, when I won't tell you how old I was. I was an older college student and I thought, yeah, I don't need this, but it
Yeah.
really was very exploratory, self-exploratory,
Yeah.
and we had to do something similar. We had to write as if there was a news release about us, and
Mhm.
we had to create a billboard
Ooh.
that was about us, which I thought, I mean, the cover of Time, that's a nice one too. But it
Yeah.
really is all about finding out what you're truly passionate about,
Mhm.
and then that gets you over that taking that leap, getting
Mhm.
past that doubt, and because do you think you have more focus then, and that gets you through the risk taking maybe a little better?
A little bit. I think you start to find your why. Is
Yes.
what I found out
Yes.
is, and at first when people tell me like find your why, I'm like yeah, 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 but when you really stop and think, and my husband and I are very active in the Cursil community, and
Okay.
one of the messages they speak is to find your ideal, and they ask the question is, where do you spend your time and your talents? Where do you
Okay.
spend your money? And when you start to reflect that, is really I think what starts to get you to find that why, because I felt like I had a hard time finding my why, and I'm a pretty high type A personality, so like
No.
this should not be a problem for me, but it was, and what I realized is at the end of the day, one, first and foremost, I want to be a good wife, I want to
Sure.
be a good mom, and I want to leave an impact, and so that really caused me to reflect and say, am I spending my time? Am I spending my talents? Am I spending my treasure exactly to fit that? And I was off balance. And I had realized that my why was not in line with what I was spending my time. And so after about 6 years of coming back and working in the family business, I went into my mom's office and said, "I'm giving you my 2-year notice," and I said, "And I'm going to relaunch the Kim Group with a professional service division." And I said, "I know as a mother, you're super excited. I'm following my passion. As a boss, you're a little mad. I'll keep it clean, mad." And she goes, "That's exactly what I feel, you know." And it was really I was at peace after we made that decision. And what I wanted to do is really bring in line with what I was doing at Accenture, is going into businesses and helping them look at things differently and figuring out ways for them to grow. And and that's really what our professional service does. So, one of our first projects that was very public was Tresker's Bakery renovation.
Yes, yes.
And, when Jeff and Martha, when we started talking, they said, "We want a building that reflects our brand." And I said, "You're an 1861-year-old German bakery. So we're talking about that?" And they go, "Yes." And so we laughed because we found the building that they're in now was built in 1895. So I said, close enough.
Yes.
But,
Oh,
but
it's a fantastic space.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you. Thank
yeah,
you.
it really is.
And it was so fun to work with them because, learning about their brand and what they do. And I mean, they bake birthday cakes for kids at the St. Jude's Hospital in Memphis, and they take them down there, and
Oh, I
they've
had
done it
no
for
idea.
years. Yeah. But again, it's part of their mission, but they
Sure,
don't. They
sure.
don't need to
No,
brag
they're
about it,
humble.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I brag for them, but and they do so much in the community and to give back and really to look at where they wanted to take the brand and how they wanted to expand it, but yet keep it the brand. And that's, I think, what a lot of small businesses struggle with. One small business I met this morning, it was a family business, and they didn't know how much success they were going to have right off the bat, and so now they're kind of that duck underwater, like, okay, let's get all this
Uh-huh.
stuff figured out. And that's really our professional services helps them guide them through that process. Is how do you set up for growth? How do you set up the structure? Whether it's with the building like Trefskers, or whether it's just kind of organizing who the players are and what do they serve and what do we need. And that then helps flow into, if it is a building that then requires real estate and
Sure.
requires property management, it flows into our different verticals.
Okay.
But like with Trefsker's business, and when we did that development for them, we had filled up the building before we finished construction, because
Oh,
we were just so excited about it, and we were telling everybody about it. And we were actually going to locate our office there in the second floor, because we said, "Oh, we'll go in there, we'll get it ball
mhm.
rolling." And we got leased out of the space twice. So we moved to a different part of the building, we got leased out again. So yeah, we've been really blessed to have people understand and embrace what we do. And to be honest, because your topic is right on point. I mean, starting a business period is risky,
It is.
and how do you make that jump? Because we all love that paycheck, and it's like it's a thing I can count on and I can get to it. But when now I look at it and it says, "But they could fire you tomorrow," it's not really secure.
Right. There's uncertainty in everything
Everything.
if you really
Yeah.
dwelled on that.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea with this topic and bringing people like you in
Yeah.
to have my viewers hear from someone like you is
Mm-hmm.
is yes, but you embraced that uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
and you've been successful because you've done that rather than avoid risk. I
Yeah.
mean, every time I would pick up the paper and I would see there's, something else that Katie has her hand in, or the Kim group
Yeah.
is working on another project that is phenomenal because
Thank you.
you've helped move Peoria forward in many ways, not
Yeah.
just with the Trefskers building, but in a lot of other ways too. So what are some
Yeah.
of those other early risks that maybe you
Ooh.
had to take or is every development project?
Every day's a risk. No. Well, when I left Haran Construction, our family company, basically, we launched the Kim Group with basically my putting my head down, and I asked my husband if we could take a loan for $2,000, and we started it with $2,000, and my assistant and I worked out of the same office, And, I would go to meet my clients wherever needed to, and we just put our head down and just cranked and worked the plan. And we actually hit our 5-year goal in about a year and a half, two
Oh
years,
my
which was
gosh,
amazing.
fantastic.
But I am also a big advocate of no one succeeds alone. And so I have a lot of help. I have a professional coach who has been with me for
Okay.
probably about 3 or 4 years now. So he gives me a kick in the butt when I need it. And I also have a board of directors. And so it's a group of women, and they're all probably smiling because they know who they are. Um, that are professional women that are in totally different industries, but they make me look at things differently. We can have a glass of wine, which is important to figure out a way to relax as well
Can
sometimes.
be, yes.
Yeah, and but they also challenge me to not sit back and relax. And
I
I
love that
realized,
idea.
yeah, and that's where I keep, I tell my clients too, I'm like, no one succeeds alone, and we think, I always ask one of the times when I talk, I say, did anybody graduate high school without a teacher? Raise your hand. And everybody will look at us like, what? And I said, we go through life and we have teachers and coaches along the way. And then all of a sudden we graduate and we think, okay, we're done. And
No.
and then we're lost and we wonder why. And so having people that help us along that way in the journey, what you do for clients, I mean, going in and helping them, work on their business instead of in their business,
Mhm.
it's vital. And I think that's a missing piece for a lot of
I
businesses when they
agree.
ramp
Well, it's
up.
one of the reasons why Business Minds exists is because we want
It's
to
perfect.
keep that learning going. And we
Mhm.
know that there's very powerful learning that happens
Mhm.
between people. We
Oh,
learn from each
absolutely.
other. So, how did you
Yeah.
bring this board of directors together to help you be challenged and to embrace those risks?
Well, when I moved back to Peoria, we were working in a small family company, right? So I
Uh-huh.
mean, my sphere was the family company, and one of the things that I struggled with in finding my really space in the community is finding like-minded, working professional women
Okay.
to really network with. So I got involved in a couple of the different organizations we have. We have amazing organizations
You do.
here. Um, and I really started to find friends. And I just ask for friends a lot of times. I'd be like, I'm looking for women that want to talk about professional growth and push the envelope forward and really ask what does people want to see in Peoria and ask them and got that feedback. And I'm a woman of faith, so I believe that then by putting it out there that God has really brought that to me. And
I love
sometimes He
it.
brings me more than I want at times. But yeah, but he really has brought these amazing people into my life, and I'm blessed to call them friends. And I might get teary eyed here,
Well, and you were
but they
open
help me.
though. You
Yes.
were open to
Yeah.
all of that. I think
Yep.
oftentimes we tend to shut down
Mhm.
when things are scary.
Mhm.
It causes fear, and as we mentioned, uncertainty. And if we let that
Absolutely.
rule us
Mm.
instead of being open and embracing what's coming to us,
Absolutely.
then obviously the latter is going to make us more successful. You're living proof of that.
Yeah.
So, how many on your board of directors? How many does it? I'm digging here because I'm thinking I kind of have an informal board of directors, but I'm thinking I need to make it a little more formal at this
Yeah.
point in my
Well, and
career.
I do as well. I mean, it is very informal, but there will be times when I will I'll text them and I'll call them. And then one time I texted one of them and she goes, hold on, let me pull over. And then, like, okay, now let's talk. And it's really, it's such a blessing because I did ask, and also again, if you pray for something, God gives you the challenge to give you it, right? So, I always pray. One of my prayers at night is to be the leader that God needs and wants me to be. And so then one of my friends said, He's going to give you the challenges then that make you into that. I'm like, oof, maybe I should change it, but it's good. But so to go back to that is he really right now it's a solid 3
Okay,
that are on there, and it's
I like that number.
interesting how they come from again different industries, and it's more they give me perspective and
Well, I really
yeah.
like that idea because if you only surround yourself
Mm,
with people who are in the same business that you are, not that there's anything wrong with that. I've been in mastermind groups
mm-hmm,
before where we're all consultants, we're all business coaches, maybe professional coaches. But there's something to be said for stepping outside of your particular industry because it does give you that broader perspective or different,
Yeah.
fresh perspective that you had not considered before. That I know years ago when I first started teaching workshops on creative thinking,
Yeah.
I would tell people to purposely, if you're in a nonprofit, go to a manufacturing facility and walk around and make note of what are all the things you could learn from a manufacturing facility. And at first they're like, nothing. But then once their creative mind is opened up a little bit more and they're receptive, they're really looking a little deeper
Yep.
and they get that and it
Yeah.
gets them past some of those things that they didn't think they could deal with before.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
one of the things that you mentioned earlier on is that learning and professional development is very important to you. So I wonder if
Completely.
you'd share with the viewers what have been the most powerful learning points for you that came from taking risks.
The most powerful are always the scars. The the
Okay.
ones that oof, we should have done that a little differently, or we missed a step.
Okay.
I love to read. I always say if I can spend 19.95 on a book that teaches me about somebody's multi-million-dollar mistake, so I don't make the multi-million-dollar mistake,
There you
I'm
go.
on board with that one. Um, but really is. Self-evaluating is a lot. Is how can we be better? And I'm always pushing my team for red carpet service. And how are we always changing the bar? I never want to do the same project twice, and I never want to recreate what I've already created. And so to me, it's if my team isn't sits in that room and hears me say it once, they hear me say it 20 times, is how are we changing the game? How are we setting that bar higher?
Okay.
And one of the things that is kind of become my catchphrase that I share with people is, um, I believe we learn a lot through pollinated collisions, and that's kind of my little word that I
Okay,
put.
say again,
Pollinated collisions.
collisions.
And so
Ooh.
yeah, so for example, like this, where we'll have a conversation and I'll kind of say something about what I'm doing or like what I do, and you'll take it in and you'll be like, wow, that's great. Maybe I don't have a need for that, but then you'll go have coffee with somebody else later this afternoon. And you're like, oh my gosh, Katie's working on this project. It would be great. You two need to interact. And so
Love
it's
it.
it's where we kind of go around in our community and we have conversations and we get to know each other, because we're not doing this all the time.
Oh, yes.
And we get to know what drives people and
Yes.
really what empowers them. So when we have a sales meeting, if you will, and I hate even saying sales meeting, when we have an introductory meeting with a client, just like I did this morning, and the first couple of questions are, tell me about you. Tell me about your business. Tell me about what drives you. And they'll end up talking for 45 minutes,
Yes, I
and then they're
agree.
going to say, we don't know anything about you. I'm like, you don't need to know anything about me. I need to know how we can help you and where you want to go. And really, it starts with what's your why, and
Huh?
where are you going with your business.
Absolutely.
So
It has to
yeah,
start with that.
it has to.
And
Yeah.
I love that idea of pollinated collisions. Well, I
Yeah.
love the serendipity.
Yes.
I just like saying that word.
Yeah.
Actually, it's just a fun word to say. But that
Yeah.
there's almost something serendipitous about that, where
Yeah.
it just it just happens.
Mhm.
You take that nugget of information or learning from somebody else, and you end up planting it over here
Exactly.
and also helping people make connections along the way. I mean,
Yeah.
again, that's another goal that Business Minds wants to achieve is to help that. And now I kind of borrow that term from you. I always give you credit. We're pollinating collisions here. We're
Yeah.
connecting and collaborating.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when I ask business owners, what is the number one um, activity or thing that helps your business succeed? And they always say to me, it's making connections
Mhm.
or building relationships. Same
Mhm.
thing. They'll say it that way. And it sounds like that's really what has brought you a lot of success and helped you deal with the risks associated with business too, is to build those
Mhm.
relationships and make connections. But I really love that what I'm hearing you say just a little bit ago was that reflection.
Mhm.
is important. That's how you learn from these risks that you take,
Yeah.
regardless of how the outcome ended up, right? I mean, you
Absolutely.
learn the most from the scars, as you
Yep.
mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
the war wounds, so to speak. But we also learn from the good that happens. Okay, what made
Absolutely.
that a great
Mm-hmm.
outcome?
Yeah. Well, and
And how you
yeah.
don't know how to raise the bar if you don't know what made it a good outcome, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. And even looking at like how do you work together as a team? And I always tell my team, especially the newcomers, where they'll see like if I'm working with an architect for say, um, they'll challenge and be like, I don't think you should do that, Katie. And they're like, oh my God, they said that to the client, And I'm like, so tell me what you mean by that, and how do we look at that different? And I look at them and I said, listen, I said, I'm hiring you for your mind. And if I don't let you show me what your mind's thinking, I'm wasting money. And I think that we get too focused on I got to make widget X as opposed
Okay.
to let's think about it. And so there's my office a couple times they'll kick me out of the office when I get too task focused, and they'll say go get your Katie back, and so I'll have to go walk and come back. But it's thinking outside the box, and that's why I really love to meet people because I love to know what makes them work, and to me it then opens my horizon as to like wow, okay. And people might have a conversation with me about something that they did at work or be venting about something, and I'll incorporate it into a development. And they won't even know it, but it's they changed me, and that's where I kind of got that pollinated collision. I'm like, why do I have all these things in my mind? And oh, I got to change this because I will. That's another thing my team knows is then if I go away on an experience or something, I'll come back and be like, we got to get this in here. Like I feel like this is going to be a game changer, and so. Um,
So
incorporating that.
does gut instinct come in for you at all in those circumstances that
Oh,
you're describing?
absolutely, absolutely, and I think I've gotten burned more when I didn't trust my gut than when I did, and so it's interesting because I say that a lot with my clients. I'll be like, oh, my gut, I'm not feeling it, and
Yeah.
and then one time my client even said like, what's the gut saying, like how are we doing here? But absolutely, and I think that comes from honing your craft is really paying
Yes.
attention to your environment and how does it absorb,
And it's not
and when that.
something mysterious to be feared or anything. This
No.
instinct that we
Mm-mm.
have, this gut instinct, it's something to
Mm-hmm.
be embraced and thought about. Always
Yeah,
be smart and engage the thinking that goes along with it as well. But
absolutely.
sometimes ignoring it can cause you more issues than not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the question, if something's off, why is it off?
exactly.
And I'm a big fan of collaboration, and so we're doing a project in the Heights for townhomes and condos, and that really started with a conversation with somebody at the EDC in the county,
Wow.
basically saying Peoria Heights has a higher poverty percentage than Peoria. And I'm like, wait, what? And so it caused me to then look at the housing stock and looking at the different demographics.
Sure.
Because my husband and I were looking for a house in there. And so we'd always go look, and then we'd see the house, and there'd be the bathroom would be in the basement, which there's nothing wrong with that. But, it's not what we wanted. And so then I'd say, okay, well, we can add on this way and add on this. And he goes, okay, Katie, but you're in real estate, right? And after you take a $60,000 house and add a $150,000 addition, you're not going to be the same. So it was kind of, I responded with, "What do you want me to do? Buy the whole block?"
Oh my
And
gosh. Well,
we looked at that. So yeah.
you are a fascinating
Yep.
person, and it's been my pleasure to have you as my guest
Perfect.
today. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for spending time.
Thank you.
You can find out more about the Kim Group at thekimgroup.com.
TheKimGroup.com.
Right. Thank you so much, Katie Arnholt, Kim, for being my guest. Next week, we'll close out the month, our theme of risky business, with my special guest, Rob Burns. Rob is the president of L&L Solutions and an HR management specialist. A lot of risks associated there. Have a great week, and I will see you next Tuesday. Thanks so much for watching.
PeoriaLife.com.